Well, sir, it's a bit difficult to put logic to the emotional mindset of a 14-year-old child. I'm almost 40 years old now, and it's just difficult for me to quantify my own line of thought at the time. I believe that I was so incumbent and reliant upon Sierra's good opinion that I was willing to do anything to keep myself in her good graces. And that's the most logical explanation I could give for that.
In 2001, when he was just 14 years old, he killed his father by shooting him in the head with a shotgun while he slept. Then he let time pass, and several days later, he wasn't done. No, he went over to his girlfriend's house and took a knife and stabbed up her adopted parents. Those parents, one became paralyzed for life, and the other was severely injured. And the courts in the state of Minnesota tried this 14-year-old as an adult, but still only gave him a 40-year sentence for first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. Well, here he is 20 or so years later asking for parole, and really it's because they changed the laws in the state of Minnesota. They said, it's unfair to treat someone like an adult, even if their crime was so brutal. So he's going to get parole eligibility now. And here he is, up for parole. And he really doesn't seem to care to get out. He's quite enjoying prison. So it's an interesting hearing. Let's jump in.
Mr. Hedberg, our records indicate that on May 26, 2001, Mr. Hedberg had shot and killed his father in the head with a shotgun while the victim was sleeping. Mr. Hedberg admitted that he had planned the killing of his father prior to the offense. On May 28, 2001, Mr. Hedberg stabbed and seriously injured 2 adult victims, and they were his girlfriend's foster parents at the time. Mr. Hedberg was certified as an adult, and on November 7, 2001, the Beltrami County District Court committed him to the Commissioner of Corrections for a total of 478 months for second-degree murder, and also 2 sentences of first-degree assault with great bodily harm. At that time, Mr. Hedberg was 14 years old. Mr. Hedberg has served approximately 23 years of incarceration, and today's review is his first review by the board. Mr. Hedberg's original confinement release date was set for May 22nd, 2028. Given the recent changes by the legislature regarding juvenile cases, Mr. Hedberg became eligible to be considered for release after serving 20 years of incarceration, which occurred on May 26, 2021. Thank you, and I turn this over to the board. Commissioner?
Good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir.
Good. So I want to start off by just asking you to tell the board what you'd like to see happen as a result of today's meeting.
I'm fairly neutral to the decision today, sir.
Okay. That's interesting. Why? What makes you neutral?
Well, sir, I pretty much served the majority of my sentence, and my SRD is about 47 or 46 months away. So I'm getting out in less than 4 years, hopefully. If I get out sooner, that's great, but I'm perfectly fine with staying in prison.
Okay. So talk about that. What makes you fine with staying in prison?
Well, sir, I grew up in prison, and well, this is pretty much what I know. Staying in prison is not, well, detrimental to me anymore. It's getting out, that's gonna be the big change for me, sir.
No, I think you're spot on right. And I think that's the thing that, we want to be focused on, because you're getting out, as you point out, either way. And so the question for me at least is, how do we help you get out the best way possible? And so that's when I asked that first question, that's really what I'm asking you, is kind of, what do you think would be the things that would help you get out the best way possible? Because there's no doubt you can do time. But that's not what your life is going to be in whatever 43 months or whatever as you said. So what do we need to do to get you ready for being outside the wall?
Well, I already have a prospective job lined up and a place to live. And if the board doesn't approve that site, I have a secondary site with my friend's aunt who could possibly facilitate a job or a place to live. Pretty much all I really need is a car and a job to help pay for it.
So when you talk about, there's the kind of the functional elements of release, right? And I think that's what you're talking about, right? The functional stuff, a job, place to stay, super important, really important pieces. And then there is the head part, the place that when you talked about, like you can do time and you can, you've navigated the being inside and where it's, you know how to do it to the point where it's not as detrimental or not detrimental to you anymore. So the question then really becomes, I'm trying to get to the point of what are the things that you need in order to wrap your head around being on the outside? Because there's gonna be a ton of pulls, right? All kinds of pulls and changes, and the world is a crazy different place in the time that you've been locked up. So have you thought about that much?
Yes. The wardens probably advised me that I may be doing a step-down program in minimum once I get done with my BA degree to help me transition more effectively back to society.
So what were your thoughts about that?
I'm fine with that.
Great. Sounds like I'm trying to get a sense of like what you want. Because it sounds a little bit indifferent, but is there something that you really want?
No.
Okay. Others have questions?
Well, just a quick follow-up, Mr. Hedberg. What will keep you from coming back? Or does that not sound so bad to you? Because I can understand you've been in prison a long time and it's just a whole different world now, and you know that. So what will keep you from coming back? You'll get out and something will happen?
I'm more worried about things that are not in my control. maybe someone steals my car and I can't get to work and I get fired and I get violated because I can't get to work. Maybe my boss lays me off because there's not enough orders coming in for him and I get fired that way. That's what worries me about transitioning out, is the things that are not in my control. I've got plenty of materials I have sent out of prison to keep me entertained for when I get out. Movies, books. Depending on when I get out, maybe a gaming console to keep me busy when I'm on ISR. As far as staying out, yeah, I suppose it's living in a situation that's more conducive to like my spirit, as opposed to being housed with people who are going through various levels of psychosis, and I'm more or less having to deal with that as opposed to being in my own situation.
Just one more question. Could you describe your spirit? What do you mean when you say that?
I would say my spirit's more like a Zen Shinto shrine with a bunch of koi fish in a pond.
You seem a little bit that way.
Thank you.
Mr. Hedberg, where will be your sources of support? And I don't mean like financial support, but as you imagine your life out in community, where do you see sources of support coming for you?
Well, I hope to be approved to live with my friend out in Ellsworth. I think he's living in Ellsworth right now, but if I'm not approved to live with him, I could possibly live by him so I could have close contact and support with him, because he's been through the system. He knows how tough it is to transition out. But if I'm not approved to live there, I could live up further north with around my friend's aunt who can help support me, and have her as a means of support and possible community support from my area that I moved to.
Mr. Hedberg, are you willing to look at the behavioral health issues, work with the staff there? One of the things in the reports that we got said, which is really good, that you've been discipline-free since 2016. You've worked on furthering your education, but you haven't explored in a therapeutic setting the painful aspects of your life before and after the governing offense. That you were a person who never exhibited violent tendencies. To this day, you choose nonviolent responses to problems, and yet you exploded for 2 days of deadly violence and directed at your father and your girlfriend's parents. And what's concerning me as a member of this board is, if you don't address what happened and why, you may repeat that when you get out. And you have resources at the facility that apparently have been offered to you, but you haven't shown an interest in trying to understand yourself. And you have a lot that could be going for you in terms of being discipline-free, in terms of, you know, your talents and your educational ability, but all that's for nothing if you get out and don't understand how you ended up there in the first place and just end up back. And as a member of this board, we have an obligation to the public for their safety. So it's not only for your benefit, but for theirs that I ask that question.
Were you aware that my father was a documented abuser?
Yes.
He abused me, abused my sister, and he abused her mother. And the court ordered that she would have custody of my sister and be moved away from him because he was so abusive. But the court left me there with him. And I think the court had making a mistake by leaving me in that house with him. Because after she had left with her, the abuse then shifted towards me. And I didn't know how to process that as a child. And through the various programs I've taken in prison, that has allowed me to, understand where these feelings have come from.
But your girlfriend's parents didn't raise you and didn't abuse you, and yet they ended up, one of them, paralyzed, is now deceased, and the other one, running for his life. And that didn't have anything to do with your in-home. That was supposedly because you were upset that they didn't want their daughter with you. So your insight into why you chose the violence and the rampage seems to be needing some attention on your part so it doesn't repeat.
Okay. I could take whatever program you want me to take, but currently I'm in the BA program and it's a little bit clustered for time. After the BA program gets done with, I'll be happy to take whatever program you want me to.
You're close to being done with your, aren't you?
One more semester.
Yeah, okay.
Help me, what's being accomplished with your BA program? What makes that worth the time?
It'll help me get a better paying job when I get out of prison and hopefully helps edify myself.
Say again, please. Help you, where?
Helps edify myself, sir.
Okay. Say more about edification, please. Where is that come for you, and what further opportunities do you have for edification that you'd like to pursue?
Well, unfortunately, the Pell Grant would more or less run out once I get done with the BA degree, and I'll have to figure out some method to further my education and pay for it by myself. But I could also buy more books for myself to further my own education and become a better person through that. But also, it's something that can't be taken away. Everything in my life right now can be taken away. My clothes, my books, my bed sheets. But the one thing that can't be taken away is the knowledge I gain. And I believe that can help me in life.
How do you see it helping others, or is that an issue for you at all to be contributing in any way with that knowledge?
Well, I believe I help other people when I'm helping facilitate RJ 101, those men who come in with not the same level of wisdom and experience that I've had for the past 20 years, to help them see the holes in their behavior and the path forward, hopefully.
Yeah, I respect that type of contribution. Hope to do more of that, or?
if it's possible. I don't know how much community service I can render on ISR, but when I get off ISR, I could possibly give more back to the community.
But there's more assurance right now of providing that, both your edification and your benefit to others while incarcerated than what would be available on the outside, is my understanding.
I might be able to secure some sort of tuition for a tribal college. I can't really explore that until I leave.
Tuition for a tribal college, right? To be
Yeah.
more a student at, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess I picture you being an instructor at a tribal college. How does that fit for you?
Perhaps other than humanities, I don't know what exact field I could offer teaching at.
Okay, but student in that area would be, you welcome that opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hedberg, do you think that you have a refined sense of, refined may be a strong word, of empathy for others?
Yes, sir.
How does that come out? Like, what does that look like?
Well, currently I have to limit my empathizing with people in the Minnesota incarceration, but also I have to keep in mind that they might be fraudulent with some of their stories. So it's empathy with a grain of salt. But also I can paint birdhouses, doll houses, do various art projects for fundraising for restorative justice, and in that way I can help raise funds for charities that help service the community.
Would you say that you struggle to trust people?
Yes, sir.
That's helpful.
Mr. Hedberg, I just wanted to follow up on a tribal college and tuition. I think I've read in all this material that your first preference would be not to be on the reservation.
Yes.
So,
There's a tribal college on, I believe, the Twin Cities area for the Red Lake
Yeah.
Band of Ojibwe. Perhaps I could attend there. I don't know if they have any sort of online courses that I could take for any other tribal college, but I think the reservation would be a bad idea for me to go back to, since it's so dangerous and the economy there is so little.
thanks.
I had one other question, and this is something I read about, and I just want to ask you about it because I was struck by it. One of the things that you talked about in the plan was the potential of going to live with that friend, right?
Yes, sir.
And the job. What was the job?
I believe it was working at a meat processing plant, sir.
Yes, that was. Have you just thought about what that is? What that job is?
About 20 years ago, I had a job training at St. Cloud Prison where they taught me how to work at a meat processing plant working with knives, electric saws.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that, but I just think back to, I don't know. I just think back to the taking of life and that kind of stuff. And does that bother you at all? I know it's an animal. I know it's about the preparation of food, but I wonder.
Well, each time I eat chicken, eat beef.
I understand. I'm just asking. There's a difference between eating it and being the one to actually do what it takes to get it to the table.
Growing up, part of animal husbandry was putting a dog to sleep. And there was a wild dog problem on the reservation, and my grandmother, my father, other family members would, I guess you could say, harvest these wild dogs so that they did not injure little children or leave messes on their yard. So growing up, seeing my own family put to death these animals was not an uncommon sight for me.
Okay, fair enough.
So I understand where your concerns are coming from.
It's not a concern. It just was an observation. That's all.
Okay.
It's not no concern. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the board before we go into deliberations and discussion about next steps?
I didn't know that one of the Campbells was deceased. I was kind of hopeful to speak with him again.
No, she's deceased.
I was hopeful to hopefully pay back some of the financial loss that they had incurred because of my actions. I know I can't give them back the quality of life that they had or undo the harm that I caused them, but at least I could potentially give them back some money that they had lost because of my actions.
I appreciate the thoughtfulness of that. I don't know what that looks like. That's something that you could certainly explore with victim services folks. RJ side. Okay. With that, I'm gonna close the discussion. During board discussion deliberation, the board will not entertain any questions or allow interruptions. At this time, I would turn it to the board members to get people's thoughts, insights, suggestions on next steps.
Is it too early to make a motion?
You can.
I would like to make a motion to deny parole and have his projected release date stand.
Okay.
And give him that time to do some of the stuff we talked about today, mental health, support, working with victim services, more planning, more clear planning.
Okay.
Judy, I didn't hear, so I heard no parole. And then,
Well, his projected release, and then let the projected release date
yeah,
be
okay.
his date, 5/22/28.
Is there a second on that?
Would you consider it a friendly amendment if there were a review in 2 years to
Yeah,
give
that'd be
him
great.
some incentive to do the
Sounds great.
behavioral health component? Otherwise,
It's a long
he says
time.
in this newspaper article that he's afraid of getting out, that he'd come back. And he said today, so I think think just
Yeah.
some motivation.
I like that.
Sorry to interrupt, but could you guys speak up a little bit? They're having a little bit of trouble hearing online as well.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Asked if she would accept it as a friendly amendment to have a review in 2 years.
Would it be out of, or would it be inappropriate to request an additional friendly amendment to the friendly amendment? And what I mean by that is if he requests that additional hearing, and I say that in part due to a perceived just indifference. If he was to make the changes or movement and come up with a better plan, I would certainly be open, because I think he does have a lot of very positive things going. I would just hope that he would advocate more for himself than what I felt we saw today.
So what's the amendment if requested?
If requested, that's what
That's
you're
it.
suggesting.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable to me, because I think he needs motivation, and I think we could set conditions, working with the behavioral health people, and he's going to be getting out regardless. And so I would like to make the effort to try to have him exposed to some things that would get him to develop empathy and to look at his conduct in a way that he understands what triggered it and how to avoid it in the future. So that's why I don't think putting the initiative in his hands is a recipe for success. I think it's, kind of more of the same. I have a concern. I would like to see him get practice in the community before his last date is up. I don't have the same sense of like he's just not willing to take responsibility or any of that. I think he's got some work to do, but I also think he's got a different kind of attitude than we're used to listening to. And I actually found it somewhat refreshing. And so I would like to see him get a chance to do something in minimum or work release sooner rather than later. And if he would say, no, I don't want it, well then, hey, so be it.
I mean, does that preclude, I'm not opposed to stepping down during that time frame.
And that just to be clear, that's something that the department could do
Yeah,
either way, right? I mean, always maintains placement decisions remain a departmental decision. Now, the board certainly can direct and should direct if there was feelings about that, but just, to say that.
That makes sense.
So I suggest we have a motion and a second, and that was it was a 2-year review. And I with a 2-year continuance with a series of conditions to be determined. But and the friendly amendment to the friendly amendment was not accepted. And I don't know if there's any other further discussion about that, but or about this motion at all. We can set the conditions as we do this, but I'd just like to get that motion.
I think to Andrew's point about Mr. Hedberg learning to be an advocate for himself, then that can come through some of the behavioral health work too. I really do think that's the nugget here. I mean, he's definitely got the academic ability and all the things he's firing on, but I think more work with the insight, the empathy, all of that stuff, and then empathy for himself as well is what I think the priority is.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote on that.
I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm very confused. So So how does step down happen here? Like,
So-
is that something we have to say, or is we just leaving it up to the decision of the DOC, or?
So step down, the board can, certainly do that, but.
Yeah, I know we can. What's happening with this specific motion? Is that?
This specific, that's not a piece of this, that's not, I didn't hear that built into this necessarily.
So what happens with it, with this specific motion?
I think this specific motion was a denial of parole with a 2-year continuance for the next review with the conditions to be established. Now, we can certainly talk about step down being included in some of that as we go.
So if we do not include that, would step down happen?
The department can always choose to do a step down because that is the department always maintains the ability. Placement decisions remain under the purview of the agency, and that's a custody status. So as long as it's a custody placement, the agency could do that. No, it's nice to tie the two together. It's ideal to tie the programming together because it is it is programming, but so the closer we can do that, and I think, some of the things you're talking about, we can, bring them in and have some of that stuff combined would be optimal.
Help me here, I think going along the same line, conditions, 2 conditions or recommendations that come to my attention are, number 1, dealing with emotion or the exposure to both maybe my emotion and others' emotions and interacting on an emotional level. And the second recommendation that came across to me was the one, more exposure to people who have not and are not incarcerated.
Right, I agree.
I mean, those 2 conditions or recommendations, I think.
I think there's a third,
And it could well
and
be,
that is
yes.
understanding the triggers that led to his going on this rampage and avoid having that,
Mhm.
gaining some insight into it by working with behavioral health.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. So we'll do the vote, and then we can go through if we can add other conditions to this. So Board Member Alexander.
I guess, yes, since the DOC can make the decision on stepping him down to minimum.
Just if I can ask, is that you're concerned about? You would be concerned about a minimum step down?
I want them to I think that we should be stepping him down to minimum. I don't have
So
concerns
I think
that the rest of the board does.
So let's talk about that as part of this. Because I'm probably more with you than opposed, but I think that can be built into some of this. Board Member Bray.
Yes, and I just have to echo what Ms. Alexander said. Yes, was stepped down.
So let's add that.
Let's
add that.
I realize.
Board Member Larson.
Yes, with the inclusion of the step down.
Okay. Board Member Ramstead.
Yes.
Board Member Nelson.
Yes.
Board Member Struford.
Yes.
Finch Nelson, yes. So it's all 7. So we have the behavioral health, 3 kind of elements to that behavioral health side. I just want to make sure, do you have those or?
I didn't.
So we have, it's the kind of this understanding of kind of the emotions, emotional kind of regulation of the emotions of others and his own.
And I think included in that is what are the triggers?
The triggers.
What ignites, what fuels, yeah.
And that third one, that you had mentioned,
Or exposure to
yeah,
people who are
outside,
not incarcerated,
exposure to those who are, but there's some,
or inaction, participation.
that could be even outside programs like the MECAS or whatever. And then we had I think there needs to be work on the release planning, because I think it is complicated by the reservation concerns, which I really respect in him, and I think that develop that plan for developing more community support and finding that, I think, is some of the stuff you're talking about, Don. He's got a great involvement in restorative justice, and I really the one thing that we have to figure out and make sure of, because the last thing I want to do is mess up his school stuff, and so we have to make sure that just his step down may tie to the semester he needs to complete, because I just don't want to screw that up, because that's obviously a really big check mark for him, I think, and so I agree on terms of the step down, and I just want to say too that there's something I really appreciate about that about him, kind of his level of frankness, almost, and just I don't know, level of bluntness, and where that comes from, and I don't know, and but I think it is it's something that I find admirable, and it's smart. He's obviously wicked smart, I think, and that can be a huge. It will be a huge blessing for him. It could also have the other side of the coin, where that ability to recognize the impact on others and how it can affect relationships. I think it can be one of those places that I hope as part of that behavioral health stuff that you're talking about can be explored with a behavioral health team. But I think he's got a lot going for him.
Commissioner, looking at the variable program review team recommendations, they suggest that once he's in minimum, he participate in the redemption project.
Yeah, if we could, that's a good referral.
And they also, remaining discipline free, I guess.
Yeah, that's a standard. Yeah.
But they emphasize a solid and practical release plan.
Yeah.
And then community support established.
Yeah.
I think exposure to the community was said, but having the support. And then they also mentioned making corrections to his apology letter.
Yeah, I think that was in process. I think he was working
with Chris Gotts.
Yeah, that was in process. Yeah, it's still in process. So yeah, it's being done. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Hedberg, you have a chance to kind of listen to this whole conversation. Any thoughts?
You guys might have to unmute on your end.
Oh, she's gone.
Oh, you're.
Oh, we can hear you.
Now.
You're off mute. You can talk.
Okay. I have no opinion, sir.
Okay. All right. We have a plan, and we're excited about it, at least. And so we just really want to wish you well. And I'm excited to come to your graduation, and next it will be December, right?
Yes, sir.
You're thinking, okay, so that'll be cool. Metro?
Yes, sir.
That's great. And which program are you doing? Is that the interdisciplinary?
Yes, sir. We can't currently pick our major.
Yeah, it's that's what's the interdisciplinary studies. Yeah, that's great. Good for you. Okay, and then you're still doing a bunch of art stuff?
Yes, sir. I think about rolling in the Art from Within program. If I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I'll tell you what, if you, what do? You paint or draw?
Both, sir.
So if you paint something or draw something that depicts, I don't know, something that, of hope, and you get it to the warden, I will get it framed. It will hang a place of prominence in the central office in the lobby. And you could, you should sign it and put a date on it. And I'll get it framed and I'll put it in the lobby. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. It'll be a place of prominence. So your artwork will be displayed there. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good luck to you, Mr. Hedberg. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
See you later.
Good luck.
Take care.
To you.
Now, this piece of art is sold out. It was going for $23. Maybe this is the one that he has now hanging somewhere in the DOC office or something. The inspiration for this piece is my love of anime and manga. I could watch anytime at my grandmother and auntie's house. So growing up, I could only see bits and pieces of my favorite shows. I still collect the manga to this day. He does sound like a highly intelligent person, as the parole board likes to say, although I do think he is talented. I mean, I couldn't draw for my life, but this ain't bad. The other piece of art's a little bit on the scary side, if you ask me. Knowing that he's locked up for shooting his father in the head with a shotgun and then attempting to kill his girlfriend's parents. I won't get into that in a moment. Nearly did kill them, paralyzed one of them. The inspiration to do is in honor of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, day of May 5th, because women are sacred. I had no one's photo or their family's permission to use their picture for this piece. Well, I mean, yeah, no kidding. So I used Aerith from the Final Fantasy because she fights for the environment. Okay. What role does it play in your life? Art is life, from images, sound, taste, smell, and feel. We do not live in a void without art. Some kind of art is creativity, and the creator made us with some spirit of creation. Imagine if Purple Rain was never released. What would the world be like without that beautiful song? God. Oh, dear Lord. Justice statement. I believe justice is doing what is right or to attempt to repair the harm done in injustice. To that end, I want to use my art to bring awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls of our nation, because women are sacred. I wanted to use someone's photograph in this piece, but I did not have permission. Thus, I use Aerith from Final Fantasy. Am I crazy? I mean, I don't think Indigenous would have light-colored eyes, right? So is it mean that he's using a photo and he just couldn't add anything unique to? I don't know, guys. Am I overthinking it? But again, it's creepy. It's kind of scary. But maybe to use. There are others that this will. I don't know. Maybe it will mean something to you. We're gonna watch his part 2 hearing in a moment, because 2 years have passed and it's not 2026, and we're going to watch his next hearing. So if you want, guys, you can skip ahead using the timestamps in the description, but I'm going to read from you this article, which really paints a picture of how brutal the crime was, and also how special the couple was that he tried to snuff out, that both survived, because it's going to freak you out. I mean, I think that it's whatever. I guess you could say neither here nor there, but I'll read it to you again. There's timestamps in the description. Thank you, Sir Richard, for providing the research and connecting the dots. I mean, a few things off of my chest. That woman in the top right corner, she works for the Minnesota Department of Corrections. It's like as if she has no, like she just starts screaming into the screen. What they're talking about is step down, step up. It's like the Minnesota, they actually do, I do think the system they have, I think is quite, it makes a lot of sense, but you don't just get paroled. Oftentimes you go from what's it called, maximum security to medium security to minimum. So that's stepping down. You go from maximum to medium, and you do this process that you get paroled through. That makes a lot of sense. Then to work release, then out. And I think that in that sense, their system seems to make a lot of sense. But she was basically. He doesn't want to get. They're calling him. You know, I guess you can say it's refreshing. He's not BSing them. If you want to call it refreshing, fine. But I view it as terrifying because he is, no matter what, going to be getting out. And 2028, regardless of what happens next, and I don't think he's going to have done anything in the last 2 years. He doesn't care. He likes prison. Prison's nice, and I don't get the whole positive energy vibes from him. I get the insolent child. Hasn't grown a day really since he's been locked up. Immature, childish, no empathy. You know, the parole board members is like, I'm hoping that he can develop empathy. It's like, can someone develop empathy? I know I don't have a PhD, but can people develop empathy? I mean, is that a thing? That can't possibly be a thing to develop empathy. Can you? I don't know. I mean, can you become aware of it and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, or you pretend to have them, or you try to like to fake it so the others will. I don't think you can actually. If you don't have empathy, you don't have empathy. And he shows absolute no remorse, nothing, and he's scary. He is terrifying. The idea that he will be out one day. What's going to stop him from just butchering the next person that pisses he? So what? He likes prison. But don't worry, you know, it's new legislation, It makes sense, make it make sense. I'll read to you the article. Again, if you want to skip ahead, use the timestamps. I hate reading the comments. There was one guy I saw in the comment section the other day. He said, Mandoo, you know what you should do? You should do one video which is just the parole hearing with no commentary, and another video that has commentary. This way, people can decide which one to watch. I'm like, wow, you're real smart. You're real smart. Like, oh, so I should copy paste like the other copy paste channels and the bot farms and the click farms and violate YouTube's terms and conditions. Just make money. Why not? Or you can use the timestamps. Sorry. All right. She peels away hurt and finds a little girl inside. This was written, 2008. They sat in a healing circle in a church. The circle included a young female juvenile offender and her two former foster parents who were brutally stabbed by the girl's troubled 14-year-old boyfriend 2 years earlier. So this is just 2 years later. And by the way, she was fully involved in it. So these foster parents who had at that time fostered like over 30 families or something, are sitting with her 2 years later. One of the parents, Carol Campbell, was left paralyzed from the chest down. The girl, Sierra Goodman, played an incriminating role in the 2001 attack. Terry Casey, a veteran trauma counselor who helped arrange gathering, deliberately sat next to the biological son of the two stabbing victims. He was holding a letter he planned to read. And by the way, she got away with nothing. She got sentenced, but it was all suspended. She never served a day in prison. Read that pretty much he hated this girl. So he was holding a letter and he planned to read that pretty much said he hated this girl and wanted nothing to do with her or have anything to do with his parents, with her, or to have anything to do with his parents and the family, in case you recall. But something nearly unbelievable happened that day. Sierra, then 17 years old, read a compelling and genuinely remorseful letter of apology. It was a letter she wanted to get right, and she spent nearly a year working on it while Woodland Hills Juvenile Offender Residential and Treatment Facility in Duluth. The foster parents, Carol and Eugene Campbell, spoke about their forgiveness and unconditional love for Sierra, a foster daughter they would gently rock to sleep at night. By the time It was the young man's turn to speak. The letter had been put aside. He expressed his willingness to at least give the reconciliation some time to work. I just want to say, I am not into this. I think this is wrong. If you are a young, I don't know how old he is. Did they say how old he was? They don't say how old he is. You're being forced to sit in a room in a circle with the woman who paralyzed your mother and forced to listen to a letter. I don't. They're like. I just. This smells like rot to me. I mean, if he wanted to be there and he wasn't pressured to be there, by all means. But I just, it's hard to imagine. And this is gonna be written like, but it was turtles and butterflies. And a year later, the Campbells officially adopted the girl. So a year later, this family, regardless of how I feel about this, they adopted the would-be murderer who once plotted to kill them. Sierra Goodman became Sierra Campbell. It was perhaps the most incredible thing I've ever experienced, Casey said, of the healing circle subsequent adoption. More than a few female juvenile offenders say the same after their sessions encounter with Casey. In her 23 years as a group home SA and trauma counselor, the 45-year-old divorced mother of 3 has labored to help offenders turn a corner and become law-abiding and productive once they return to society. The keys lies in getting trust and peeling away the layers of victimization, self-hate, apathy, and hostility to finding the hurting little girl inside most young female offenders. Only then, Casey said, can true rehabilitation begin, and that hasn't been born yet in Casey's experience, or mine does not merit a fair shot of reclamation or redemption. She's more than her crimes. I mean, whatever, guys. If this worked for them, I can't. They adopted her, and they're just the most amazing family in the world, and it works for them. What's my opinion? But I could never understand it. But there are incredible people out there. That is the truth. I'm a diehard optimist, said Casey, who works where there's a will, there's a way. That kind of due spirit was rewarded last month when peers throughout the state gave her an award for long-term and outstanding work. Girls caught up in the juvenile system. Let me see. So they're going to go through. Here it is. I want to go to the facts of the crime, right? Okay. A few years later, however, after several foster home mismatches, officials sent Sierra back to the Campbells, but too much damage had been done. Sierra became an angry, sullen girl who was dating Daryl Hedberg Jr., another lost trouble physically by his father and suffering from undiagnosed mental disorders. The two lost teens sank into an angry, sullen world that included an obsession with dark subject and Satanism. When the Campbells objected to the relationship, the youth hatched a plan to kill the couple as well as the boy's father. Hedberg fatally shot his father as the man slept. The following morning, the Campbells were stabbed after they found the youths walking on a dirt road. Sierra had refused to take part in the stabbing. The teens fled in the victim's pickup truck, but were caught a short time later. Hedberg was tried as an adult serving a 40-year prison term. Sierra was sentenced to 22 years, but that sentence was stayed on condition she completed the terms of 20 years probation. She spent nearly 3 years at Woodland. She was so bizarre and so out there when she came that I frankly did not know how I was going to be able to reach her, Casey recalled. Like many girls, Sierra got to the point where nothing mattered anymore, not herself, not the Campbells, not the community. Sierra said it took a while for Casey eventually cracked the shell around her, that hurting little child. She's an awesome person, says Sierra, now 24, living in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and pursuing college courses. She is very genuine, and she has her mother's touch. I do think Sir Richard found in her record a document of her records, and actually this is her. So this is her, and this is her adopted mother and father, but I think this is before summer of 2003. Sierra Goodman's adjusts her graduation as her proud foster parents looks on during graduation. This is summer of 2003, and the murder happened 2021. So this is after it. Wow. That is unbelievable. That is where they are. I guess they are. They are the most special. Maybe they are the most special people to have existed on this. There are amazing people out there. Oh, you gotta say you can't take that away from them. Holy cow. All right. Enough of my talking. Let's go into the next hearing. Let's see what happens. I don't know. Maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe he'll have done everything they wanted and he'll change his mind and he's ready to get out of prison and excel. Let's find out.
Our records indicate on May 26, 2001, Daryl Hedberg shot his father in the head with a shotgun as his father was sleeping. 2 days later, on May 28th of 2001, Daryl Hedberg stabbed and seriously injured 2 adult victims, his girlfriend's foster parents, in an attempt to murder them. Hedberg admitted that he planned the killing of his father and others prior to the offenses. Mr. Hedberg was certified as an adult, and on November 7th, 2001, the Beltrami County District Court committed him to the Commissioner of Corrections for 478 months. He was found guilty of second-degree murder and 2 sentences of first-degree assault with great bodily harm, which are to be served consecutive. Mr. Hedberg was 14 years old at the time of his offenses. Due to new legislation regarding individuals who were juveniles at the time of their offense, Daryl Hedberg Jr. now has the opportunity to be reviewed by the Supervised Release Board after serving a minimum of 20 years of incarceration. On August 6th of 2024, Daryl Hedberg was reviewed by the Supervised Release Board and continued for a future review by the board. Today's review represents his second review after serving approximately 25 years of incarceration. His original confinement release date is May 22nd of 2028. Given the changes by the legislature regarding juvenile cases, Mr. Hedberg was eligible to be considered for release as of May 26th of 2021. Thank you. I turn this matter over to the board. Commissioner?
Good morning, Mr. Hedberg. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Good. I'd like to start out by asking you the standard question of start by just saying what it is you'd like to see happen as a result of today's meeting.
I have no expectation, sir.
Well, if you could write your own ticket, what would it look like?
I don't know, sir. It's how it's supposed to be a question for if the Campbell family is fine with me leaving prison. And I don't know if they contacted you or anyone in regards to this matter.
I really I can't get into a lot of the detail of whether or not, but you can just describe whatever it is you'd like to describe, what you're aware of.
I don't know. I would feel comfortable getting out if the Campbells were satisfied that justice was served for them. I would like to pay the money that they lost in this process for medical bills and whatnot. Unfortunately, I can't really speak to them directly, but I would like to pay back the money they lost in this process.
So for you, you would condition your stepping forward, your moving forward
on whatever the wishes are of the Campbell family.
Yes, sir.
Why is that important to you?
Because they were directly harmed by my actions, sir.
And what would you say to them?
I've apologized to them twice in the past, once through my lawyer, once through Larry Oakes. And I would also like to extend another apology again. I'm not sure that's adequate for the pain they have endured. I'm not entirely sure an apology would heal the damage I've done, but I would like to pay the money that they have lost in this process back to them.
Okay. If you think you look at what happened that resulted in your incarceration, looking through the eyes of who you are today, what insights have you gained into your offense?
Well, sir, it's a bit difficult to put logic to the emotional mindset of a 14-year-old child. I'm almost 40 years old now, and it's just difficult for me to quantify my own line of thought at the time. I believe that I was so incumbent and reliant upon Sierra's good opinion that I was willing to do anything to keep myself in her good graces. And that's the most logical explanation I could give for that.
Can you describe how you've changed?
I've gone through a lot of trauma while in prison, and it's kind of hard to sum up in a single idea, but it's just, I had to mature in prison. When the majority of my role models were other prisoners, and I had to find my own way and discover myself in the process of going from facility to facility, encountering various individuals with different levels of psychosis or behavioral issues. And it's not a good environment for me to grow up in.
I would concur.
So I had to find suitable individuals to associate myself with who were not going to drag me down with them.
Yeah.
And that was a difficult process, considering that prison at the time was a very gang-oriented facility, where it was kind of like broken up into what your race was, further broken down into what your gang was. And me coming into that environment at 14, I had to avoid the landmines of stepping on somebody else's turf.
Yeah.
And trying to find myself and find a positive way forward in this living situation.
Along the way, it appears as though you were able to kind of find to some level of stable place or people to connect with. Would that be a fair statement?
When I got to Oak Park, I encountered the Restorative Justice Project that had just started there or was reintroduced there. And it allowed me a positive programming to find other individuals who wanted to pay it forward to society.
And when you, so to talk about, you're at Stillwater now.
Yeah,
How has that been?
it's lovely. I spent 7 years in hell in Faribault with various cellies with various levels of psychosis and drug abuses, and it was a very difficult process, trying not to get caught up in their various programs,
Challenges.
their various schemes and drug abuses.
And now you're there and you find it to be a more positive environment.
Definitely, because I'm not really, when I was in Faribault, I was constantly worried about what my cellie was doing. Because some of my cellies would abuse drugs, and so I was concerned that their drug habits would get me rolled up into what they were doing, or they would hide drugs in my area. And I couldn't really inform on them, because if I informed on them, their gangs would come after me. And it put me in a bad situation where I basically had to keep my mouth shut a lot.
So which I appreciate, but now you're at Stillwater and you would, is it strictly about the fact that you're single celled? That's what makes it better?
Yeah, I came here for the single cell.
Okay,
Because
but
in situations where you're housed with other individuals, you have to worry about what they're doing as opposed to what you're doing.
right, understandably. But can you talk about the community difference and your level of engagement in that from a positive standpoint?
It's no longer divided between like gang lines or race lines like it used to be. Stillwater, they used to have gang tables where this gang controlled this table, that gang controlled that table, and that gang controlled that table. And you had to like navigate around to your spot to sit. Because if you cross that no man's land, you're liable to be assaulted later.
Yeah.
Maybe then or later in the day, but it is not like that now. It is way more open, way more positive, and more of a community than what it used to be.
So how does that influence you and what role do you play in that community? I'm asking you this for beyond just about Stillwater. I'm asking you just to have a better understanding of, your sense of belonging in a community and both as a member and as somebody who can influence it. So I'm wondering what your sense of that is and what your involvement has been.
Well, I know that my actions reflect badly upon this community, and I'm trying to do my best to avoid individuals who are not of that mindset and trying to stay positive, but I also try to contribute to this community by doing various art projects for people. I like painted the kitchen wall, I painted the kitchen door, I painted guys' cells. I like it. It allows me a very creative aspect and outlet for my creative process.
So what would you envision your life being like if you were to be in the community? When you apply the gift of imagination to a future, what does it look like? And how do you feel you would operate, or what would it look like for you to operate in a community environment?
Possibly using my artistic abilities for community engagements, community fundraising. They kind of had like a tattoo, not a fundraiser, but it was like I don't know what to call it. They had to get like a certain number of tattoos done in a day for this Halloween program. And I figured I could possibly do something like that when I'm on the outside for charity, a good cause, or painting for a good cause, like with art from the inside, bringing attention to certain issues, or just making music and selling that for charity.
Okay.
So like I noticed on the kiosk, there are like some songs that are like for charity. And so I could possibly do something like that for charity myself.
And talk about what you would envision your life being like. Where would you live, and you've had some real success, right? You completed your degree, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how does that play into what your future looks like?
Well, I put forward multiple places I could parole to. It's more or less incumbent upon, will I be paroled or will I not be paroled? Because then I could start putting my feet down in a certain area. And then once I stabilize, I could possibly branch out and start getting more and more involved with the community, as opposed to just trying to stabilize myself in a certain area. And whether it's working at a meat processing plant, a warehouse, or just working from home online, I kind of have to get my financial situation stabilized first before I branch off in the community. But I'd pretty much wake up, go to work, come back, shower, exercise. And depending on whether or not I have internet access, I could possibly work from that Dungeon Master Direct or another service like that for some additional money. Maybe if I download some music programs, I could start recording music again. I haven't been able to do that for about 24 years. Or I could just start learning music again, because I haven't been able to use a guitar in so long. I haven't been able to afford a guitar in so long, because when I was taking the college programs, they were paying us like 50 cents an hour, and that basically came out to like $30 some every 2 weeks. And that didn't really go far, so I didn't have enough money to save up for a guitar. The money I did have saved up for my eventual release got used up by COVID, because I was basically 2 years without a job. And yeah, it was a very difficult time. And I thought I would die from COVID, to be honest.
Do you see, do you have a clear vision of what you would like your life to be outside of prison?
I have an end goal, but it'll be a lot of work to get there, since I'm basically starting from square one in my 40s.
So what does the end goal look like?
A house, garden, maybe a family.
So then if you can imagine the end goal, if you start with the end in mind, the range of things in between, from square one being what it likes when you leave the doors of the prison. And I hear the notion of like, hey, it's really depends on whether I'm paroled or not. But I'm wondering where you're living. And there's this whole notion of, obviously you're inside, you're at Stillwater in the earned living unit. And yet, and I think one of the things that I've been trying to ask about here is your ability to have at least a portion of your head and seeing that future outside of that, of the wall. And then, I hear you have a basic vision of get a job and go to work and come home and, that's life, right? It's what it is for a lot of us. And yet, I don't hear quite as much of that sense, because I hear that you saying that it's really dependent upon the decision of the board. And I respect that. I understand that your release is really a matter for the board's determination. But at the same time, the level of preparation is something that I think, and the preparation is not just about the exact address you're going to go to, but it's the totality of the thinking and the preparation around the range of options that are in front of you. Do you think that you've given due consideration to that?
Well, I kind of have to deal with things as they are as opposed to how I want them. So it's kind of reactionary. I have a plan to get a job, get a place to live, get a car, get insurance, get all these lovely things. It's just I have to get out in order to work on them as opposed to plan on them. And my plans could change from what's available to where I can be and if I can have internet access. And it's entirely incumbent upon somebody else's decision and not really mine. So I have to plan ahead for what somebody else is going to decide, and it's a flip of a coin.
Well, I would argue that it's not quite that random. That the decision of the board is largely based on what we see and we hear in you. And so that decision is not random, flip of the coin. It really is about what we see in you. And I think the fact that we are seeing you and we set that term of continuance that at what it was, that there's a lot that Daryl Hedberg has accomplished.
Thank you, sir.
And 100%. And that's the reality. And so for me, when I hear that, I want you to be at some level the decider by what you do. I mean, when I asked the question today, or what would you like to see happen? It's really up to you guys. And it is, but that decision is really grounded in what we see and we hear in you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I mean, I definitely want to get out and get to work. It's just, will they approve where I want to work at? Will they approve where I want to live at? And if not, where could I fall back on? And that decision is not up to me.
You're right, it's not. But I think all the steps in between and just making sure that you have what the option is. I see that one of them, I think, was your aunt's house, right?
Yeah.
And then, and that's maybe probably okay, but it'll be up to the agent to decide. But then do you have a plan B? Because plan Bs for many of us are always something worth having. It's just those sorts of things, you have a tremendous amount of skills, artistic and otherwise. You achieved a level of academic success. And so, whatever you end up wanting, the question of what you want to do becomes, do you want to target something? I guess these are the things that I'm thinking about. Last question for me. What would it look like if Daryl Hedberg got out and was going down the wrong road? How would people around you know that stuff's not going good for him? What would it look like?
Well, sir, I've always been offered the opportunity to go down the wrong road in prison. Drugs are prevalent everywhere. It's just, I've never chosen that option. I
respect that, but it doesn't even have to be drugs. It could be just you're in a bad spot. Like life happens sometimes, right? Or just blew it down, mad, whatever. And where you're in a funk. What would it look like in Daryl Hedberg?
I've been plenty mad in prison, sir. It's finding methods of dealing with it that is not reliant upon violence or emotional outbursts. And I've had to develop that skill a lot in prison because I'm dealing with, again, cellies who are drug abusers, have various levels of psychosis, are in gangs, or just plain disrespectful. And having to live in close confines with people like that is very stressful. And for 7.5 years, I dealt with that pretty well. And so I think I would deal with that sort of situation on the outside possibly much better because I've got much more to lose as a free man as opposed to someone who's incarcerated.
And I'm actually thinking beyond the win or lose of being in or out. I'm thinking about this just in terms of, and not that you haven't been able to do it, but that sense of like, what does it look like if you're having a tough time? That's all I'm asking for. What would people around you see if you were just having a tough time?
Suppose I get silent.
Okay.
I get a little irritable, but it's not something that's really beyond my control because I've definitely had to deal with difficult situations and individuals in prison. And I consider it training for when I leave prison because I'm going to deal with that same sort of entitlement or aggression in the real world as opposed to just in here.
Okay, thank you. I'd open this up to any board members who have questions for Mr. Hedberg.
Yeah, Mr. Hedberg, I think I read in your letter of May 8th that what you're hoping for is to stay where you are.
Yeah.
And maybe get into the tattoo program or culinary. Is that that's what you're hoping for?
From what I understand, culinary arts is supposed to start next month in the kitchen. I really want to get into the tattoo program because I would love that, to get in that sort of field.
Okay.
I mean, I could do that when I get out. I could start apprentice to a tattoo shop. But if I got it done in here, that would just give it more street cred.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Mr. Hedberg,
Hi,
how you doing?
doing well, sir.
I think you and I have some things in common that I'd like to explore with you.
Okay.
One thing is this whole concept of restorative justice. Okay. It seems like you've gained a lot in that. Okay. So that's one thing we could talk about together. And I think we'd help one another with some of those issues around justice and what it is. Would you agree? Or would you
Yes,
like
sir.
to pursue that? And you have pursued that.
I definitely want to pay it forward to the Campbell family if they're open to that. I don't know if they're open to that or not, but if not, I'd definitely love to pay it forward to the community at least.
And I think you're finding ways of doing that. And so that brings another thing that's very important to me. And I think you're demonstrating it to me is you got to do it yourself, but you can't do it alone. How's that sound?
Yes, sir. I don't know if you've seen the wall in the kitchen, but some of the ideas for the kitchen wall were not my own ideas. So it was more of a collective effort
Bingo.
as opposed to my singular effort to what would be going on the wall.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely didn't want to put SpongeBob SquarePants on the wall, but it got requested by somebody in the administration. So SpongeBob got put on the wall.
Again, you couldn't do it alone. Some people are going to object, but you can bring in so forth. Bring it in. Okay, you've got a good sense of what's right and what's wrong, what's safe and what's dangerous. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And I applaud that. I think you have a good sense of agency. You know what you can do, and you've learned how to do it better. And that's most evident to me with your art, and maybe even the tattoo is where it's could be exercised the easiest. again, you got to do it yourself, but you can't do it alone. Is that making sense?
Yes, sir.
The one area where I'm most concerned is in this whole sense of called belonging. Does that make sense? Or you know what I'm talking about? I belong with, I'm part of. I believe
Yes,
you
sir.
had, go ahead.
I definitely feel it when I'm in this particular community because the entirety of the ELU is kind of judged by the actions of individuals.
Yes.
So if an individual acts up, it kind of reflects on all of us, like, oh, there's a problem with the community. And so if I have an issue, which is non-existent, but if I had an issue, it would possibly indicate there's an issue in the community as a whole.
Uh-huh.
And so I have to not only like monitor my own behavior, but I have to keep an eye out for individuals who may be going through emotional problems that may need some counseling.
Yeah. I think you develop good skills, the agency of knowing where it's safe and where to reach out or to include and where not to. And where it doesn't go with a pattern that you want, you're aware of the conflict with that or the disappointment with that. But I don't think you've had much experience of trusting being a member of a well-organized group or community. Is that fair to say?
The closest I've had a dealing with anything like that would be being part of the restorative justice committee and group over at Faribault. That was a heavy responsibility. I loved being a part of that committee because I could actually paint chairs and various projects for charity. I loved it.
Right. Yeah, you can contribute. You're a part of it.
Yeah, I loved it.
The best experience of belonging you've had and the worst experience of belonging you've had has been at Faribault, is what I understand.
It's been a long and arduous ride, sir, but Faribault would possibly be the worst 7 years I've ever had.
And at the same time, that's where restorative justice was planted or the seed germinated.
It started at Oak Park, but it eventually spread out to other areas. But Faribault is where I was the last part of the Restorative Justice Council. The spots are already filled up here, I think.
So what I'm understanding, that belonging started at Oak Park Height and was expanded even with the difficulties at Faribault. And there may be limited opportunities now at Stillwater, but it's my picture that in the step-down processes, there's increasing opportunities for more of that sense of belonging. Less restrictions, less immediate supervision. And so I'm asking sort of, I think you've got a good value of belonging with limited experience of doing it. That making sense? And I want you to have a step down process where that belong, or you know what you're bringing in terms of capacity to work with others. You know you have that capacity, opportunity's been weak. Do we share the same picture?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At least that, I think you're ready for that. I want to see where that can happen. Or I hope the continuance has opened more doors than it's closed for that. Okay. I guess
Thank
the
you,
other
sir.
thing, I'm dealing with an idea called me, we. Can't do it alone. I need to do it with something else. We do it together in order for me to do it well. I can do that with you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hedberg, I just have a couple questions. Did you finish your BA?
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations. What'd you get it in?
It was just a liberal arts. We weren't allowed to pursue a focus. And I was kind of wondering whether or not once I get stabilized in the community as whether I should continue my academia in a more focused area or if I would go into a trade school, possibly BSU.
Those are really worthwhile thoughts. I mean, that is a conversation worth exploring. What would you do? You said that you didn't want to go to minimum because you don't want to share a room again. So what would you do if the only way you can start to get out is by going to minimum versus staying in ELU and not being able to start the process of getting out? What would you do?
I would much rather stay at the ELU because sharing cells is it's a road
Horrible.
to failure because there's drug use and there's hidden drug use. And I definitely do not want to get mixed up in that because a friend of mine was brought back from minimum because someone planted drugs in his area and they didn't do a thorough investigation and they just assumed he was the guilty party. And if I rub someone's shoulder the wrong way, I do not want to be sent back inside because this guy has an issue with me. And that's what my primary reason for wanting to stay is because I do not want to deal with that whole territorial culture of this is my area, don't step over here. Because I deal with that in here already. It's just that these individuals don't have any sort of real power to affect me because I'm living in a single cell and I don't have to worry about them putting something in my cell without me seeing it. They have to step inside to put it in my cell. Out in minimum, they have free access to put whatever they want in my area, and I won't know about it until I'm in sec. On my way back to medium.
So does that mean you'd rather not work toward actually getting out if it means you ever have to share a cell again?
I believe I've got like 22 months left and I'm perfectly fine doing it here.
Yeah. Okay.
They've got some vocational training programs I'd like to do. I would definitely like to get into the tattoo program. Again, it's 7 years of being double bunked was hell enough. I do not want to subject myself to that again.
So my last question, what is your current financial situation? How much money do you have saved, if any?
I've got like $100 and some in savings. I have my entire gate fee paid off. I get money from my reservation once a year, and I want to put that into savings. Again, COVID really depleted all my money I had saved up. I had like close to like $4,000 in savings, and COVID happened, and this 2 years of lockdown just slowly depleted that to nothing. There was like no jobs. It was horrible, and I thought I was going to die because when I was in Faribault, I asked for medical help twice, and twice I was told that I'd have to wait for tomorrow to see the nurse. And yeah, I didn't think I was going to make it through COVID, honestly. So I didn't really have much future plans beyond trying to survive COVID.
Well, congratulations on making it as far as you have. That's all the questions I have.
Hearing other question.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Hedberg,
Hello?
Mr. Hedberg, I'd like to, first of all, commend you. You seem to be goal-oriented, able to complete what you set your mind out to do. I don't know if it was a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science. I saw on the record it said Bachelor of Science, but regardless, you completed your degree and you got into and have stayed in the earned living unit. And you haven't, from my reading of the record, had any discipline for 10 years. Is that correct? No institutional discipline.
Yeah.
Well, those are all really strong indications that you can set your mind to something and do it if you think it's for your benefit. So I commend you on those achievements. The question I have, however, is according to the
reports, you've refused to have anything that would help you with insight into yourself, into your actions, into controlling your interactions with others. You declined to meet with behavioral health, despite the fact that that was one of the things that was requested at the last hearing. And I don't understand the connection when you can work towards something that you think improves yourself, like education, earned living unit, but the behavioral health, and I understand why you didn't work on your step down plan because you didn't want to go to minimum custody. That you've explained that reason. I don't
Yeah.
agree with that reason, but you've explained it. But I don't understand why you've declined to meet with the mental health provider and haven't sought assistance from behavioral health staff to address emotional triggers. I don't understand that. Can you help me explain? Can you help me by explaining why you haven't done that when it was specifically requested by this board the last time they saw you that you do that?
Okay. Having been incarcerated for 25 years, living with very difficult individuals with, again, various levels of psychosis or personal issues that are beyond my own control, I've developed pretty proper and healthy methods of dealing with my own responses to theirs. And I don't think I need any more counseling to know how to properly deal with that sort of situation.
Would you be open to at least looking at those areas to see if maybe there's something you haven't considered? Maybe there's a strategy, maybe there's something experience-wise that could trigger you that wouldn't be necessarily something that you have the wherewithal right now to meet, but that with some help, behavioral help, as to identifying those triggers, you could be on the lookout for them and perhaps avoid any problems down the road, either inside or outside the prison. Would you at least be open to that kind of interaction with behavioral health?
No, ma'am.
And that's because you don't think you need any help? Is that right?
Well, that's, I do not trust staff.
And does that go for all staff? Have you had any
I was over
interaction?
at Faribault where
I'm sorry.
I was over at Faribault where staff would openly tell the inmates my personal information. So I do not trust staff.
But you haven't had any experience yet with the behavioral treatment staff. It's my understanding from the program narrative, the report that I read.
I've heard from individuals that the staff there would speak about their interactions with mental health. So I do not want to share my personal information or trauma with correctional staff.
So I also hear you say that your goal is not necessarily to get out sooner than your release date, but rather to stay out of trouble, stay where you are, do what you think is the best way of handling your incarceration, and then just serve out your time. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah. Here it's nice and stable. I don't have to worry about someone putting contraband in my cell. Yeah, it's lovely doing time here. I definitely don't want to give that up for the trauma of moving again, having to buy everything again, then having to worry about maybe rubbing someone's shoulder the wrong way, and then I'm gonna have to worry about them planting something in my area to get rid of me because they don't like me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hedberg.
Mr. Hibbard,
Hi.
I'm Tony Carter, a member of the board. I joined late because of technical difficulties, and I thought I should introduce myself. Actually, Member Ramstad asked the question that I had wanted to ask, and I'll just extend it a little bit. I do understand your opinion of your ability or inability to trust staff, and therefore not want to work through those programs as recommended, as the reason, you're not doing that. I wanted to ask about your opportunity to begin a step down plan, understanding you're not wanting to move into a roommate situation. And also as it impacts your ability to transition in a more planful way back into community. I know that you have a certain amount of time left. I think you said 22 months, and you perceive that it would be okay just to wait for that.
Yeah.
I did want to encourage you to be thinking about whether there might be some options to begin elements of a step-down plan. I was here late, so I may be a little bit repetitive and having not heard what you said already about that. But if you could think through elements of what that might look like and work with staff to propose how you might get more community exposure, be out and testing that interaction. If you might be able to work at a higher pay level and begin to save more so that at that time, when you are able to be released in community, you have some of that, some additional savings to help you transition back. I think those might be good ideas. And I would just encourage not knowing all the possibilities that may or may not exist for elements of a step-down plan that you might think of, minus perhaps that piece of not having to have a roommate. So I just wanted to encourage you in that, and also to appreciate the progress that you've made, the manner in which you are comporting and able to interact today where you are, and the help that you've been in community. It's very difficult to recognize you as the person who may have committed the offenses of which, we are, of course, now meeting with you about. But I'm thankful that that has happened, and just encourage you to continue whatever you can do to find elements of that step-down process. Thank you.
Mr. Hedberg, just a couple of questions from me, and I'll keep it brief. I want to echo the sentiment of many of the board members. Kudos to you on getting your degree. That's a fantastic accomplishment, especially considering your background and how education was not for you growing up. So I think that's something that is admirable and something that I suspect you are proud of, and you should be very proud of. If you've made your feelings abundantly clear that you are not interested in minimum custody, and you have kind of laid out your rationale for that. Part of it being kind of the risk and some of those things. Do you think, and I appreciate your perspective. I may not agree with it 100%, but I understand where you're coming from. Do you think that there is greater risk in potentially trying the minimum and trying the step down so that you can ease your way back into society? Because as you've pointed out, you're getting out in 22 months. Do you think there is greater risk in trying that and pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone so that you can, have things in place, potentially get work release, maybe even have an apartment, those sorts of things set up in advance versus walking out the door on whatever the date is? I think it's May sometime of May 22nd, 2028, with nothing planned and ready to go. Like, which is the greater risk from your perspective?
So over the past 25 years, I've seen individuals come to the system. When I was over at Faribault, I literally watched people go out to minimum and come back. Going out to minimum is no guarantee of success or or fulfillment of success. It's just an additional step. I already have a job waiting on me. I already have a place I could parole to. It's just, I have to plan my personal plan around what everyone else is going to decide. And so, for me, it's more about comfort. I've got 22 months left and some change. I would rather do it in comfort and in peace as opposed to chasing programs from facility to facility.
I can appreciate that, and I agree. There is no guarantee. Like, stepping down is not a guarantee of success. I think it is more. I certainly can't speak for the rest of the board members. Ultimately, we want you and others that come before us to be successful and to not be back. And I think just these are mechanisms that, I personally feel do help to establish some of the framework that'll be really important, developing support systems, just kind of developing some of the things that are going to help you be successful. So like I said, I understand your perspective. Again, I may not necessarily agree with it, but I guess you have answered my question.
Let me ask one question. If we were to forego minimum and move you to work release, would you do that?
Immediate work release?
Yeah.
Sure.
Why? You can have a roommate there.
I suppose I'd have more incentive to go to work release as opposed to hang out 22 months with a group of random individuals in a pod. And hopefully the individual who I'm sullied with at work release would also have the same incentives to not mess around. But it's no guarantee. It's just, I've had so much cellies over the years who did not care about the impacts of their behavior had on me. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I'm just hopeful if I were to go to work release that I wouldn't have to deal with a cellie who's using drugs, who's having psychological issues, and I would have to be put in a tough choice of whether or not.
I've heard that, but I'm interested in like because that's life too. I mean, you could have that in the community, right? I mean, you can have a neighbor that has these things. You can have coworkers that have these struggles. Things happen, right? That we certainly don't expect. So I just to go back, you would be interested in that?
Work release?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
But again, does the Campbell family feel comfortable with that?
Well, that's a separate question.
Yeah.
But
one more question, if I may. You're a member of a Native community at this point, is my understanding. What sense of belonging have you had with that community, that culture, those values, and what's available for you from that community now? Mm-hmm. I guess my observation from the outside, there's a place that I've often admired the belonging that's displayed. And what's it been for you, and what's the opportunity?
Through the years, it's been various people who've ran the group. And so I've tried to stay away from that because it's more politics than I want to get involved with.
Okay.
It's not really like a racial thing. It's more of like a clique thing. And I'm not really choosing sides between which clique I'm siding with. It's more of a, do I want to keep myself out of their BS?
Thank you.
And I just have one quick question. You did say in the materials that you would consider going to behavioral health to see someone outside the DOC?
Yes,
Is that something you would do?
outside the DOC, yes.
Yeah. You would, okay.
It's just that I do not trust staff to
Right.
maintain the confidentiality because I've witnessed staff tell my personal information to another IP.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hedberg, before the board begins discussion and deliberation about next steps, I want to open the floor to you to make any final comment, if you'd like.
If the Campbell family is still fine with me getting out of prison early, I'm all for it, I guess. I'm not really expecting anything to come from this parole hearing. It's just, I'm perfectly fine sitting the next 22 months here, if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close that portion of the discussion. During board discussion and deliberation, the board will not entertain any questions or allow interruptions. And with that, I would open this to board discussions.
I'd like to make a motion that we respect Mr. Hedberg's vision for himself and allow him to do the next 22 months at Stillwater ELA or ELU.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Repeat the motion again, please.
22 months to serve out the remainder of his time to hit his supervised release date.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, my discussion, I probably would not vote for that just because I would like to see him go right from there to work release. Then he could get some outside behavioral health help if he wants it. So just a thought.
I guess I'm more in favor of the work release, and at least exposure I've had to work release, those opportunities for outside behavioral health are available. Yeah, and have worked out well. So I'm more for a work release at this point. Yeah, or at least explore the opportunities. What are available there? Yeah.
So we have a motion on the table to allow him, and that really at this stage would be ELU. So he would stay at ELU for until he hits the supervised release date. Any other discussion?
I really would like just to understand the motion a little better. I'm
So
hearing.
he has a hard out date, and in May of 28. And the motion is to let him remain at the ELU until he hits his supervised release date, at which time he would just go out through the standard supervised release process.
All right, and may I ask a question? Would that mean then that work release he would not be eligible for work release until that release date, 22 months from now?
He has a hard release date, so he would be out on that date, regardless.
Okay.
So
Without work release.
without work
required?
release, right?
Okay.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to just navigate through. I would like to see the ability for work release, understanding that would necessitate another facility. It would be outside of Stillwater ELU. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be in the community. If he were to go work release, it would be in the community.
And that would also provide the opportunity for the resources that we've talked about, him being able to utilize on the outside as opposed to the inside. So I'm struggling with the motion as well and wanted to share why. I do appreciate that ELU has been a compatible location for Mr. Hedberg and that he is willing to stay there. I regret the inability for him to receive the resources, of mental health and anger management, the resources we've talked about that could be available for him in another spot. For that reason, I would likely not vote for the motion as well.
Just as part of kind of some ongoing discussion to the motion, I'm wondering if, because I don't think from Mr. Hedberg's perspective, he had not really considered the work release option during his initial statements. And I certainly want him to have agency in kind of directing some of this. Jody, I'm just wondering if you'd be open to amending the motion to allow him to make a request for work release, at which point, if that happened, that would be something that would be authorized. Because I think much like the other board members, I would really like for something like that to at least be on the table, because I think it is going to be important for him. So
to be clear,
just a thought.
just to be clear that he can apply because he's got a presumptive release date, so he can apply if he wants.
Okay, nope, that's
to
helpful.
do
Thank you for the clarification.
I'm tracking with you, Andrew, on that in terms of his getting to decide for himself.
Just to be clear, I cannot support the motion as it is either. I would much prefer to see a move to work release, facilitate that quickly, and see him do that for a year, assuming he can do that and come up with develop a comprehensive plan. He could come before the board then and request parole, which provides some incentive for him to do that. I understand I absolutely respect and understand the nature of the risk aversion that he has, and I can appreciate it. I also believe and feel that risk will exist no matter where he finds himself, and so I wouldn't support it, not because I don't necessarily I don't want to be disrespectful of what he wants, but I also believe that I worry that he will be somewhat cold and have to walk out cold. And he may do just fine with that. But I would rather see the incentive drop, and that's where I just sit with in terms of the motion. So I just want to be clear about my position as well.
Could I ask you to clarify something, Commissioner?
Yeah.
You indicated that he would come back before us to ask for parole. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, I mean, that I would be more comfortable rather to give him the incentive that he said he would be willing to do. And then you have that year work release, and then he can come before the board, and assuming everything goes as it does, he could be paroled.
So would the work release be 1 year or the 2 years that he has left to expiration of his sentence?
1 year. And so that he realizes the incentive of, at least, a chunk of time, a year or 10 months or whatever of early release, but it's all about focusing on the future. Because that's my concern, is that, he's got a lot going for him, and I don't want to diminish that one bit. I just would love to see his head on the outside as opposed to swiveling as much as it does on the inside.
Would you see behavioral health participation as part of that year while he's in work release?
So, yeah, I mean, I would. I just want to be clear. We have a motion on the table, so I just want to keep that separate.
Vote.
So I think let's just call a vote on this. To the motion on the floor, Board Member Bray.
No.
Board Member Carter.
No.
Board Member Larson.
No.
Board Member Ramstead.
No, not without clarification.
Okay. No. Board Member Nelson.
Yes.
Board Member Struford.
No.
Schnell votes no. So the motion as presented does not pass. So I'll come back with my motion, and then we'll see where that goes. I would move that we would deny parole. We would facilitate a transition to work release in the most expeditious manner possible. That he would move to work release, following all the standard conditions of work release, and the addition of him identifying and locating a behavioral health provider in the community of his choosing, and with a release. And I'm not even saying we need to know the details of what that is, other than that he is doing it. That he develop in that time a comprehensive release plan, and that he be seen in 12 months for consideration of early release on parole. That's the motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there a discussion?
It's my understanding of work release. There's a wide selection of different types of housing at different locations there, as well as good exposure and help in choosing the type of work that you can get into. If work release for what does he have the chance to veto an assignment to work release, or what's his options in being part of the selection process, as opposed to assigned to?
I mean, he can certainly weigh in on some of that. It's so bed dependent, and that kind of stuff. So that can do it. I mean, at the end of the day, the choice is, this is the plan we're putting in place. But he could say, I'm not doing it, and if that's what he does, then that's what he does. But
and return probably to his current place.
He just would stay where he's at. I mean, if he denies going, but at least I'm interested in the incentive for what the potential benefits are.
Yes.
My question is how realistic is achieving all that within a 1-year period, getting the work release location, getting a behavioral health person, getting adjusted to work release, and developing a comprehensive release plan. Is that realistic, or would it take longer than that? I don't know what kind of resources are available to someone in work release for assisting with the comprehensive release plan. I'm just questioning how. I don't want to set them up for failure.
Yeah, and I think there would be resources that are available in the community. There are a number of programs that are available that could work with them, in addition to the halfway house itself that may be able to assist. There's also many people who've gone, as we've all seen, people who've gone through and have really developed some incredible plans and worked with a number of community resources. Maybe the work release ends up being, if it takes 60 days or whatever, it ends up being 10 months. I'm interested in that incentive, and having them have that incentive. So I do think it's possible. And we've had people who've gone through, 6 month placements before, in terms of release.
And that clarification from work release 1 to work release 2, I think is very helpful for everyone.
If it's available.
If it's available. But I think, we just see where that goes. Did that answer the question, Cheryl?
Yes, it did. And also, it's my understanding that he'd have the option, if this wasn't what he wanted or how he wanted to spend the next short of 2 years, he could elect to stay where he is. So he's got a choice either way. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He would always have that option of just refusing to go with the program that we're laying out here.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second. To the motion, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Carter,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Okay. Board Member Nelson,
Yes.
Board Member Strufert,
Yes.
and Schnell votes yes. Mr. Hebert, you heard the conversation here. You have some choice. I really would hope and recommend that you look at door number one, the work release option, and that you to do that if for yourself, if there are people that that we can connect you with that have made that transition that you trust and that you respect and that kind of stuff, and there are people in the community and folks that that you've been incarcerated with that are doing exactly what you would be doing, and you've been in a long time, and this is an opportunity. And the last thing I will tell you is that the family does not oppose at all your transition. So that would be what we're looking at. Do you have any questions about this?
So when would I ask for the work release process?
Under this thing, we just made that decision an option for you. So you don't have to ask for it.
Okay.
We would start to move it forward unless you just said, look, I'm not doing it because I don't want to waste a bunch of time. But at the same time, we would have, work release. They would probably have you complete the app because that's just the standard. So you could do that right away. But we've already put that in place, that this is what we would like to see happen. That can take a little bit of time. It's, we have beds that we have to work out, but I would say probably within 60 days or so, they could, we would beg them. I would beg them to make sure that we get you moved. And then, you start that move, and then, you can start to look at behavioral health providers depending upon where you're placed, and go from there.
So it would be within 60 days?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because I don't want to apply for a program or a vocational training program if I'm going to be leaving.
Yeah, so you're hearing, what you're hearing is that you can leave. And as soon as we can get you set up in work release, I'd like to see you go to work release.
Okay.
That's what the board's wish was here. And so, make sense?
Yeah.
So what do you, just on the whole, what are you thinking?
Have to rethink my future because I was kind of expected to stay at the 22 months.
Well, now it's 12, and then you can come back and just talk through because all we'd be asking you to do a year from now is just to talk about your plan, and assuming that all looks good.
All right.
And I wouldn't have any expectation it would be anything other than good. You're good to go. You'd be out earlier. Fair enough?
Yeah.
All right. I wish you well.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank you.
He may have just Jedi mind tricked the entire parole board. He came in saying, I don't want anything. I'm good to stay here. I'm not going to do the sing, song, and dance for you. And then they're like, oh, no. Let's send him out on work release. He'll come back in a year and then we'll parole him. And look, guys, I know I'm being a little bit funny. I want to know what you think. Do you think he Jedi mind tricked him? Do you think this was one big ploy at reverse psychology? I don't. I don't. I actually think that he genuinely just wants to do the rest of his time in prison. He likes where he's at. He's got his own cell. He's got pillows. I'm sure he's got like a TV in there. He can make soups. He's got it made in the shade, baby. You know what? He might only have $100 in his savings account, but there was COVID and he had to spend his life savings. I know I'm like back and forth all over the place here with my dry humor. Here's the thing. I think the parole board did the right move by encouraging that he go out to work release, because he this is it. He EOSs. There's no probation, supervision, no hand holding. There's no parole project coming out here to take him. He doesn't even have an advocate show up because he's a loner. And if you think that there's going to be a happy ending to him getting out in the streets, I guess I have one of his drawings to sell you. This is going to go nowhere good fast, real fast. This is crazy. And again, the thing is, it's like, how do you want to feel about him? Do you think he's manipulative? I don't know. I don't think it's interesting. It really is interesting. It's one of the few hearings that I actually don't think there was manipulation going on. I simply don't think he wants to get out. And it was so interesting. It's like, what do you want? Well, it depends on the victim's family. If they're okay with me getting out, I'll get out. His father, that's never mentioned by anybody. He's a victim that no one cares about in these hearings. It's quite interesting. Now, by all accounts, he wasn't a good guy, but since when has the parole board ever cared about whether you're a good guy or not? Since when does the justice system care about whether you're a good guy? And what's interesting, and this is just speculation, but it does seem to me, based off of the information that we have, that maybe this dude, Mr. Hedberg Jr., wouldn't have done any of this if it wasn't for his girlfriend. I don't know, his girlfriend was a year older than him. And it seems that there's some people alluding to that she talked him into doing it, talked him into blasting his father as he slept in the head with a shotgun, talked him into going over and stabbing up her adopted parents. And she ends up getting away with a fully suspended sentence. She doesn't spend a day in prison. And it wouldn't, this feels like classic true crime. If you watch enough true crime, first of all, his mannerisms. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. He reminds me of that guy. Oh, God. I'm not going to be able to even remember it. It was JCS did a interrogation video. The guy in the trench coat. Do you guys remember that guy? JCS, if you know JCS, Jim Can't Swim, is that what it is? Did an interrogation of this guy in the trench coat who was being interviewed by a sheriff about why this guy in the trench coat killed his buddy who drove him to, and he did it for fun. He wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. And in the interview, he was just like, yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. I killed him because I wanted to know what it felt like. And he talks exactly like this guy, the same sir, except that he has the manner. He's like this. He's sitting here at his parole hearing, and he's like this, and it's like he's 40. You're 40 years old, and you're like you. That's what, and we know better. We've seen hearings of people who go in at 15 years old and go through the hells of the dungeons of Angola, not, it seems, the white glove treatment in Minnesota. And they will come up to their hearing and they will have a village behind them in support. People that they've reached and communicated with, they have plans and dreams. This is nothing. This is someone who just doesn't care. He's got $100 in his savings account. He has the naivety to say, I want to pay back the victims for their pain. You'll never pay them back. And do you think he means well by it? I don't know. I don't think he can feel empathy. I think he's just kind of saying it, but you know, you want to give him credit. He's just, there's no real BS with him. He just lays his cards out on the table. Maybe in his mind he'd like to pay him back. He can't conceptualize money. He has the like the street smarts of a 14-year-old, even less. Like, he doesn't even understand how ridiculous he sounds when he says he has $100 in his bank account, but he had $4,000 and COVID ruined it because he thought he was going to die. I have to make a prediction. We'll see him back in a year, but he's not. I will predict right now he is not going to work release. Why would he? You know, he's happy where he is. It's so easy to stay where he is. Now he's going to have to go and do something. He's going to have to actually work. He's going to have to like figure out. He's going to have to deal with people. Oh, I just don't see it. And it's kind of crazy. You know, it's interesting. Like, one takeaway that I got from this, it really does seem like the inmates control their environment to a degree that is kind of shocking. Like, this ain't boot camp. This isn't, you're not, it's like, well, we can't make him do anything he doesn't want to do. You're right. He is getting out in 2 years. We could tell him to go to work release, but he doesn't have to go to work release. We could lower him, step down to another prison facility where he'll be minimums, but we can't make him. And it's like, what? You're an inmate. You murdered your father. You attempted to murder 2 other people. She's still paralyzed from the waist down. And you get to choose where you're gonna do the rest of your time? What? It's so crazy. We live in a really weird world. I mean, can you imagine people coming in from like third world countries, or not even third world countries, just other countries where prison means prison, where you want to get out of prison, no one wants to, and then you go and you look at a parole hearing, and for someone who blew his father's head off with a shotgun, and he doesn't even have to pretend to have remorse for that. They ignore it like it never happens, and then they plead with him to get him out early. You know what that would be like to go and work release? He'd be out of prison. He'd be like in a halfway house probably. There are people in Louisiana on work release that make $90,000 a year. We've covered them. The ones that go offshore. They're on a boat. It's not a bad life. Anyways, this is a long day. It's a weird hearing, but it sparked my interest. So thank you, Sir Richard, again for the research. And with that, we'll see you in a year. I'll let you go.